on until you're actually doing it. Now, I'm pretty sure that if I tap into Zoom, it says I'm going live.
It
So if you
does.
are
We're live. We're live now. Yes.
okay, that's cool. Because there's so many buttons to push and so many things to make sure that I could go to my YouTube channel. But anybody who's just kind of picked up, because I do have now over 400 subscribers to my YouTube channel,
Nice.
and I am so thankful for all of my subscribers. And so I want to grow that audience. And today I'm live here with Mitch Gray. And so, as you know, we are doing a YouTube live show to talk specifically around mental health issues, mental wellness issues, emotional well being. Specifically because both Mitch and I have had struggled in our adult lives and probably throughout maybe of our young adult lives as much as in our adult lives. I'm not saying that I'm old at this point. Um, and we are here to help you address some of those things through our learning experience. And today is Mitch's turn. We're going to focus on you, man, because last time we were
Okay.
together, we focused on me and we talked about I'm kind of walking through some of the topics in my book, Walking the Path of
hmm
Leader's Journey, specifically around how to develop personally and how to become the best version of you. I know it's cliche, but I think at this point in the world, and so it's 2024, we really need to address those key issues to become our best version. We need to step into that.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about anchors. And that's something that you've found valuable in all the emotional roller coasters that you've been on, because that's kind of what holds you together.
hmm
So let's define it. Let's talk about it. Let's dive into this conversation, Mitch.
I think you just did it. So you said everything I was going to say. Not really.
So, what's an anchor? What do you mean when you talk about anchors?
Yeah. An anchor to me is something that really tethers you to sanity or peace.
Okay.
So it's especially important during the moments of chaos, whether you're having a trauma situation or a disordered situation of some sort or a differentiation of some sort. An anchor is something that you can hold to that will at least give you a tether to some form of peace. So these anchors could be something that you do every day and or it could be something that you teach others around you to use as a tool when you are in a place of emotional turmoil. So I put on mental health workshops for communities, and one thing we do in those workshops is we teach people how to create a safety plan. So a safety plan is letting people know. So we're talking mental health safety plan. Anyone can use a safety plan if you have a health issue, but we're talking for mental emotional health. So a safety plan is something that instructs people of what to do when you are having an emotional mental breakdown. Things to say, things to not say. Do you touch that person? Do you not touch that person? Do they have a favorite song they like to come back to? Do they know their name? Because a lot of people, when they're in the state of emotional turmoil, they forget things like their name or where they are or where they were going. They can totally disorient themselves and disassociate with a type of reality. And so when we talk anchors, anchors can be one and or two, can be one or and two things. So it can be one or the other or both. It can be something that you do every day that keeps you tethered and keeps you in routine. It can also be something that you teach people around you, action steps and things to do to bring you back to a state of orientation. So we're going to kind of use that definition of an anchor as we talk today. Yeah.
So I do know that when I was having some chaotic moments back in 2021, and
Mhm.
that's kind of, where you kind of stepped into my life to kind of, to be quite honest, you became one of those anchors for me. And
Mhm.
so you became a kind of a steadfast person who was able to kind of help me and I always, the standard is breathe and show up. But it was really more than that. So from an emotional position, um, being in chaos is not a comfortable place at
Right.
all for anybody. And for anybody who's been there, you and I specifically, I know that when I can't think straight, it's difficult to kind of get things done.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I think, regardless of where I am in life, wherever that chaos is, whether it's calm, whether it's chaos, I am a person who exercises, and
Hmm.
that is routine for me. I mean, that goes
Yeah.
beyond, I even, walked 6 miles on the day that I wanted to,
Hmm.
take my own life because it is such a part of my innate reality, my
Hmm.
reality. Um, and I've always heard, and the stories are that when somebody's in that space where they want to end it all, and this conversation doesn't have to be about that specifically, but
Right.
even in
Right.
that space,
Right.
I still did my 6 miles. It's like, well, that
Hmm.
doesn't make any sense. You want to end your life, but you still walked because something about me, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah.
needs that space. And so maybe my subconscious was trying to hold on to things that are routine. I don't know.
Yeah. Although both you and I are experienced in this area and have our different expertise, we are not psychologists or psychiatrists. But I will say what I've learned and in working with people and having my own experience, your experience in that moment is not abnormal. In fact, there are many stories of people that are in that space that still carry on with their routine of the day, and then make decisions as they make them. And so there is a disassociation that takes place, but there's a comfort, and we're talking about using anchors as a positive. There's a comfort in keeping the routine. And so, from that standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world that if someone is in that space of suicide ideation, they would still continue their normal routine because there is a comfort and peace with that.
Mm.
And if they have happened to make peace with the decision they're making, then they will want that comfort and peace. And so it's not really abnormal that you have that experience. I've experienced that before, along with millions of others who have experienced that before as well. We're not alone in this battle. But when we're talking anchors and routine, that is exactly what it brings. Is it brings a bit, I use the word tethered. It ties you to a comfortability, a peace. It ties you to something so that when you do have that disassociation, you can come back home
Mm.
to something. And that's kind of what you're identifying there, is that you still felt the need to take your walk. You still felt the need to find comfort in physical activity because that's what tethers you to. And I would even argue, again, not being a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I would even argue that that actually probably saved your life in that moment because it brought you back to something rather than just being hooked into the chaos. That's when we get into really dangerous territory. I call it being addicted to the chaos. I talk to business leaders about that. I talk to people who are dealing with mental health issues. When we get addicted to the chaos, that is a major red flag that we've lost our sense of identity to the something that really brings us value. And those anchors that we're talking about, and we can dig into what those look like in a little bit, but the anchors that we're talking about are really what bring you back to that value. They bring you back to that sense of identity, purpose, even potentially, but really that sense of routine, because it is good to have those routines that can bring us back home.
Well, I don't know if that routine or that part of me saved me that day. It may have been a piece of piece of the puzzle, I always say,
One
one of the
element,
variables.
sure. Yeah.
Um, but it always seemed to me that that is something that I needed to do. So prior to
Yeah.
chaos, post chaos, I am a man who needs to step
Yeah.
into and keep my body active, whatever that look. Now
Yes.
I have a specific routine because, we know what I'm trying to accomplish in 2025.
You're training. You're training.
I am training. I'm training in the
Yes.
most crazy way. And I say
Yeah,
that tongue in cheek, but I also literally hiking 12 plus miles a day, hitting the mountains.
yeah,
Earlier this month, and this is May, was up in the in Grandfather, North Carolina high country area, putting putting in those miles, carrying a full pack. And I want you to join me at some point in either the training component or even a section hiker of the AT through hike next year. But given all that, um, let's talk about you. What are some of the anchors that you
yeah.
typically are your go-tos or things that bring you back? And I'm going to use your word, bring you back home.
Yeah, so years ago, 2005-ish, kind of my first thought of creating anchors, and it was kind of a seed planted in different words by a therapist I was working with at the time. She didn't use the word anchor. I don't remember what she used, but I kind of adopted that word later on. But the first thing I decided is that I'm getting out of bed every day. I don't stay in bed now. I will confess my sleep patterns recently have been terribly off, and so my getting out of bed has looked different than what it's normally looked. I've had these weird. I don't know if it's circadian rhythm changes or what's going on, but I've had these really random. I wake up in the middle of the night for 3 or 4 hours type of a situation happening, and so my getting out of bed is happening later in the day than normally, but I still get out of bed. Along with that, I always get dressed. So getting out of bed, getting dressed are kind of one anchor. I'm not going to stay in bed and drown in my sorrows. I'm not going to stay in bed and pour over Netflix. Now, for someone else, that may be something that's healthy for them. For me, it's not because I just if I stay in bed, I just tend to lose hope. And I just tend to go down the path of real darkness. And so for me, it's even if I have nothing to do that day, I always get dressed. I never stay in my pajamas, and I get out of bed. Another anchor for me is physical activity, much like you. Again, because of my schedule that goes through seasons, I went 7, 8 years where I was in the gym 5 days a week. The last year it has not been that way, so it looks a little different. I'm trying to get back in the gym more often because, much like you identified, it does give me, I like my body feeling good. That gives me a sense of confidence. It gives me a sense of calmness. And it's just good to have that physical exertion, especially the older we get, continuing to move our body. People say, well, I'm getting old. And it's like, well, how often do you go to the gym? How often do you move your body? How often do you play games? You're getting old because you're allowing yourself to get old. And you and I have had those conversations before. So we really get to choose how we age. And a lot of that is physical activity. If we use it, we don't lose it. We actually can continue keeping muscle structure and keeping joint structure, et cetera. So getting out of bed, physical activity, some form of meditation for me is important. Sometimes that's sitting meditation, sometimes it's walking meditation, sometimes it's laying in bed at night listening to the ringing bells on my phone and just letting it soak in. So it just kind of depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes it's meditation in the shower. It just kind of depends on how I'm feeling that day. Sometimes meditation is going to a movie. It can be different types and forms. It doesn't just have to be sitting meditation. So I do that most days. Nutrition for me is really
Can I stop
important.
you there real
Yes,
quick?
go. Yep.
Because I'm learning about meditation. I am
Uh-huh.
not a guru or anybody who's practiced in it. And to be quite frank, up until, really this year, and we're talking 2024,
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was,
Right.
because the only thing I
Right.
know about
And
meditation is
many people don't. Many people don't. They get
okay.
weirded out by it because they don't know. Yes.
So the cross-legged, the whatever this
Sitting.
is, the
Yep.
hum, I don't, and so
Yep.
that was always like, okay, that's meditation. That looks kind of
Yeah.
weird, strange, and quite frankly, just I'm not interested. But I actually do something. And I had this conversation with another person who was all into it. This is her space.
Hmm. Hmm.
Meditation be, in different forms. And she taught me that.
Hmm.
She said meditation
Hmm.
comes in different forms. It doesn't have to be that. You don't have to sit
Yes.
down. And
Right.
for me, when I'm out there hiking my 12 miles a day,
Hmm.
I count. Now, people say, well,
Yeah.
you're OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. And I count, and it used to be because I there was a reason behind the count. counting. I used to hike a trail that was always dark. I no longer hike that trail on a daily basis, but because it's dark, I'm carrying a flashlight in my
Mm,
hand.
hmm.
And so in order to balance, I'm going to use my words because I'm also learning about conscious language. In order to
Hmm.
balance the weight and across hands, I would count 100 every left foot, every left foot
Right.
step,
Let's switch
100,
hands.
switch hands. And so I'm
Yeah.
balancing the weight on both. And we're talking, and 12 miles for me is a 4 hour hike. And so this is
Yeah.
a 4+ hour, morning meditation that I'm literally counting 100 over and over and
Yeah.
over again. And I do that meditatively, but I'm still aware of my surroundings. What is meditation supposed to be? That's my
Yeah.
question. What is meditation supposed to
I was really introduced to it quite a few years ago when my buddy took me on a Zen Buddhist meditation retreat, and it was a silent meditation retreat. We did not know that. He booked it thinking it was something different. So we get there, and it was 72 hours of silence at this meditation retreat. And so we did sitting meditation for like 6 to 8 hours a day. But then we did other forms of meditation, which really introduced me to the idea that almost anything can become meditative. It's the intention. And so we did things like walking meditation, where we walked around the room and we would walk in different ways. We would walk backwards. We would walk softly. We would speed up. We would walk holding hands with someone. So it was really kind of to experience different forms of walking meditation. We did work meditation. And so you were assigned a task. Mine was to sweep. And the differentiation between sweeping a room and sweeping meditation was when you're sweeping a room, you're sweeping it to finish. When you're sweeping the room to meditate, you're just sweeping the room to sweep.
be?
So you're not worried about finishing a task. It's just about being present with each swipe of the broom. So you're really becoming kind of one with the broom, one with the motion. You're not thinking. Some people were given gardening tasks. Some people were given cooking tasks. Some people were given washing the dishes or preparing for the meal. And so I was really introduced to this idea that almost anything can become meditative depending on the intention, which really kind of shifts your mind to mundane tasks that you may have to do because of work
Mhm.
can actually become a state of meditation, or giving a talk, or writing a book, or taking a shower or a bath, or grocery shopping. I love grocery shopping because it's very meditative for me. It's kind of interesting that, I have my list. I don't really have to think about it. I can just kind of wander around and just be present. And so really, again, meditation is about the intention of becoming one with whatever you're doing. Sometimes that's sitting, sometimes it's doing activities, but it's all about the intention.
Then I need, and I'm thinking about how powerful this could be, but I'm thinking right now, I need more of that. Be-
Yes, all of us do. All of us do. Yeah.
because the very words of, and only because I'm learning this. And so I've been learning this a lot since our first conversation several years back. But since our first conversation, I'm having conversations with many, many different people who practice it in different ways. And it's always about being present. And
Yep.
so, in different ways, I am training myself to be present because, and everybody who's watching this knows this about me. I have five different, almost six different types of almost seven different conversations, because I'm now including this as one of my
Sure.
conversations,
Sure.
um, conversations with Mitch. But I also am developing another conversation, which is going to focus on the veteran population. I'm a U.S.
Mhm.
Service member veteran.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to learn how to be present in my conversations and
Mhm.
not just having a conversation with somebody, engaging in small. No, because I have conversations around people's personal story, professional story, social impact. suicide are
Mm.
conversations over here about what it means to be well and whole.
Yeah.
I needed to learn how to be that. And so I'm learning about
Right.
validation, validating people's experiences, and not thinking through the conversation, but being present right here in this moment right now.
Mm.
And because of that personal training through the help of people, I think I'm better for it. I
Right.
literally have better conversations
Right.
with people like you.
Well, you're identifying the word that even meditative experts will use, and that is practice. You have learned something, you're practicing that something, you're not looking for perfection, you're just simply looking to be present, and that is the practice. And that's what's great about the idea of meditation is it's not about perfecting. So much in our life is about getting better. And I was talking to someone yesterday about the capitalistic push that we feel in our culture in modern countries. And that is we have to get better. We have to make more money. We have to do things differently. We have to continue pushing forward. But the problem with that is that isn't, let me back up. The problem with that is that can distract us so deeply from a connective existence
Mhm.
that we forget that life isn't about pushing forward. It's about being present in every moment. And that is the result of meditation. Meditation teaches us to just when our monkey mind continues to go different directions. Meditation helps us go, okay, thought, you're here. Good to see you again. But right now, I'm focused on just being,
Right.
just simply being present because we all do it. And the greatest monk in the world will tell you they still fight the monkey mind because it's such a human intrinsic thing that your thoughts just go. And even after decades of meditative experiences, the greatest monk in the world, who all they do is meditate, they will tell you they still struggle with it. And so, what that teaches us is it's just about practice. And that's what you're identifying. Yes, you're improving because you're practicing, but you're never going to perfect because perfection is mythological, it doesn't exist. It's a figment of our imagination. And so that's what I would encourage people to do when we talk about anchors is just try something. Just pick something out of the blue that you think you could do every day that would tether you to that peace and that calm that you could practice. Make it attainable. Not attainable in an achievement way, but attainable in a practice way. This is I can get out of bed. I can get dressed. I can have some type of physical activity. Everyone can go on a walk or they can move their arms. Or I remember back in the day when I was running a health program, we used to go into senior centers and teach senior citizens how to do physical activity with cans of vegetables. Because for an 85-year-old that doesn't do activity, like a can of beans is pretty heavy. So it's pretty awesome. So you can do anything that helps move your body. And so just pick something that you can begin with that will again bring you back to that peace, bring you back to that calm, and associate you again with who you are and your value and your meaning and your purpose.
I love it. I love it. And because of that, I have, so there's three M's that I'm learning about: meditation, mindfulness, and
Mhm.
manifestation. And as I learn about them, I'm writing about them, I'm sharing what I'm learning. And so these three elements, these new elements in my life, are helping me redesign
Mm.
how I'm living life. And so, from somebody who has made, two suicide attempts, since 2013 and 2021, having met you and then have grown in a space where I want to be able to help, and I always try not to be cliche, help others find themselves, because that's
Yeah,
really where, and I don't want to help others be the best version of themselves.
right.
There are other people probably more qualified than I am, in
Sure.
whatever aspect that is: health, nutrition, business, finance, spirituality. Yeah, there are
Yeah.
people who have been practicing those coaching techniques for years. I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but what I've become, I am so grateful for
Mm. Mm.
because, in their own special, unique way, you and other people included, have demonstrated, have modeled, have shared, have written
Yeah.
about these three ideas: meditation, mindfulness,
Yeah.
manifestation. That my whole world is now changing. And I want to
Mm.
share those experiences with other people so that they can just become who they need to be.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I like
And it's
it.
an amazing process.
It
And it,
is. It is.
and the thing is, there was a time when I was scared, because these things are
Yeah.
new and weird,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're different. And I say that to say, I grew up Roman Catholic, I converted to Christianity.
Hmm.
But the more I'm appreciating the texts, specifically the Old Testament and the Torah,
Mm.
kind of the origins, and then some other things that kind of align with that, my perspective of life has changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to go into too much detail here because I don't want to freak people out. Because I want them to
Yeah.
appreciate the fact of our conversation is to bring them back to a place where they can feel centered,
Yes.
whole, and
Yeah.
hopeful.
Yeah.
And we do that through your practice of having those anchors.
Yeah. And I think you're identifying something else, and that is find what works for you
Yeah.
because we're all on a different journey. And what's worked for you may not work for someone else. It may. It's a good starting point to steal ideas from other people because
I'm
then
not
you at least
stealing
then you
anything.
no I'm not no I'm saying it is it's a really good in fact I think the smartest people steal ideas from other people they borrow because it's a starting point you're going to evolve into your own path
Right.
so it's I really dislike this whole idea of imposter syndrome I think that's a people talk about staying away from it. I want people to get into it because at least it's a starting point. If you don't know where to begin, borrow an idea from someone else, do what someone else is doing, and then you'll find your way. The point you were making, in a way, was just start, just get into the weird unknown things that you see other people are being affected by and just practice them and see what happens. I mean, you can do things like read old ancient texts, whatever text you want to choose to read, whether it's the Torah or whatever else. You can get into, buying a deck of cards and pulling cards that maybe help you set your intention for the day. Get into meditation. Just get into whatever sounds really exciting and enticing for you. And then it'll unfold from there. The universe will open up opportunities from there. As long as you show up, that's why we show up, right? Like that's the most important anchor is that we just show up because, again, as my best friend says, nothing changes if you don't show up. And so we have to show up. And when we show up, then things will unfold the way they're meant to unfold.
There's no better way of ending the conversation than with that. So I don't want to add because
Love it.
we want to keep this to within 30 minutes, and I think we're about there. So Mitch, thanks again for joining me on another YouTube Live. At some point, we're gonna switch and we're gonna do a YouTube Live
At
on your
some point,
YouTube.
once I learn how to deal with it, yes, I promise we'll make that happen.
We've got some
Yeah.
technology hiccups. Until then, for everybody who's watching this, and of course, this is being recorded for other content platforms. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Take care.